Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this special event. This is the State of the World Population Flagship Annual Report. It's called Against My Will, and it focuses on the harmful practices against women and girls. We are coming to you on Facebook, YouTube, live from Bangkok, and we have a special panel for you sharing their stories. So without any further ado, let me turn it over to our regional director, Bjorn Andersen, for a pretty broad overview of what the report is about and why we have focused on it this year. Over to you, Bjorn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roy, and also welcome to all of you across the region and hopefully across the globe as well for our third swap launch event. And we are continue to mark our regional launch of our global flagship State of World Population Report, which UNFPA issues every year. And like I said, this is a third such event. It is titled Against My Will, and it's the 2020 and the 2020 report focuses on harmful practices against women and girls that devastate millions year after year, and with a particular emphasis on child marriage, female genital mutilation, and gender-biased sex selection. And it's linked to, which is of course linked to son preference and an extreme bias against girls. What these diverse harmful practices all have in common is that they are rooted in patriarchy and gender inequality, and are intended to control girls' minds, bodies, and sexuality. Our first two launch events tackled child marriage and son preference with renowned researchers and academics on these issues, sharing their views and work and suggesting a way forward. And today we have three remarkable young persons from Nepal, the Maldives, and Indonesia with on-the-ground experience and expertise in tackling harmful practices, gender inequality, and injustice, with advocacy and their activism. Though they come from three very different countries and three very different contexts, our special guests share much in common: a determination to change hearts and minds, empower girls and women, and transform entire communities and societies. You will hear today their personal stories of challenge, stories marked with setbacks and success as they navigate complex environments and contexts and learn what works and what doesn't. Our speakers and all of us here today know that we will still have a very long way to go, but we need to start immediately. To change this, we say respect, protect, and fulfill. Three pillars of human rights that provide a strong framework within which to tackle harmful practices and a range of other ills that plague our world. First, respect. We must foster respect for women and girls by changing entrenched attitudes and practices that dehumanize and commoditize them. This means disrupting root causes of inequality and ensuring that we respect girls' autonomy. Second, protect. We must protect women and girls by enacting and enforcing laws against practices like child marriage and female genital mutilation, but also by changing attitudes and negative social norms. And finally, fulfill. Governments must fulfill their obligations under human rights treaties and commitments made in international frameworks like the ICPD Program of Action that require the elimination of harmful practices. However, though, achieving gender equality that is actually manifested in everyday lives of women and girls requires a series of steps to ensure freedom from harm and transform all patterns of discrimination and unequal power relations between men and women. These three principles and words, respect, protect, and fulfill, can bring real change and real results for women and girls Indeed, our speakers today embody these principles in the work they do, and we are very, very privileged to have them with us for these special occasions. So a warm welcome to all three of you. So let us now get to know our panelists' journeys to become your youth advocates, to showcase what they have achieved so far and the road ahead. So thank you, and over to you, Roy.
Thank you so much for that, Bjorn. And now we have our moderator for the panel, my colleague Heidrun Fritze, who is joining us from Germany today. So it's over to you, Heidi. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Roy. Welcome to the last and final panel of our series that gives an insight into the SWOP, the State of the World Population Report 2020 on harmful practices. I have the real honor today to facilitate the discussion with our three remarkable panelists. That's Sara Naseem from the Maldives, Khalis Masadi from Indonesia, as well as Rachana from Nepal. My name is Heidi Fritz. I work at the UNFPA Regional Office Asia Pacific, based in Bangkok, as a technical analyst on youth and adolescents. And as our regional director, Björn Andersen, just mentioned in his opening remarks, the three actions, respect, protect, and fulfill, can bring real change to young people's lives and voices. Therefore, I'd like to structure today's discussion around those topics to get to know the panelists' journey to become the youth advocates that they are today. The discussion will also showcase how they're changing norm practices and attitudes in their community and what they have achieved so far to protect their rights, their own rights, but also those of their peers and their community. And lastly, we will look in how can we fulfill a world where there is no harmful practice, where there is no gender inequality and injustice that are faced by especially young women in our region, and what advocacy and activism can do about that. I will introduce the three panelists we have here today, one after the other, and then we go into rounds of questions. But I also like to encourage the audience live on Facebook and YouTube to submit their questions that we can address at the latter half of the panel. So let's begin with you, Sara. Sara Naseem is a women's rights advocate and social justice advocate from the Maldives. She stands up against abuse of power and calls out against injustice and for accountability in her community, and especially in her increasing conservative environment. In 2015, she co-founded Nuforse, a anti-street harassment movement that raises awareness, first of all, but also demands access to safe spaces for all. That also includes young boys, young men, and not only women and girls. And Sara, since the inception, your initiative Nuforse has reached hundreds of girls. What is your motivation to start this kind of engagement, to change attitudes, behaviors, and practices that often make young women feel uncomfortable on the streets, or even worse, and in their everyday life? Over to you, Sara.
Hi, thank you, Heidi. Thank you for this opportunity to be a part of this panel, to the team in the regional office and back here in the Maldives as well. As you've already mentioned, the Maldives is a country with rising religious extremism, and it's something you realize pretty early on, that as a girl and young woman, you're not treated the same way as men. And this is a lesson that is reiterated in classrooms and outside, and it's something, I think, like a lot of us, that never sat well with me. And because I was privileged to be brought up in a home where my gender was never a problem, I think, and I also had access to a lot of information I could learn from, I knew I wanted to do something about it, and street harassment was one of those things that you realize is something a majority of women face. And so it's a very easy into the conversation to start with something that a lot of women can understand very well. And I think that my main motivation was just to start a conversation about something that that we have normalized for so long. You know, it's normalized in songs, in movies. And for me personally, street harassment is also symbolic of a lot of the root causes of inequality in our society. The power imbalance, the denial of bodily autonomy, the normalization of abuse against women, especially in public spaces, which allows for much worse to happen behind closed doors. So that's one of the main reasons we wanted to start with a topic like street harassment.
Thanks a lot, and we will come back again to the work that you are doing in your activist endeavors. And I now turn to Khalees. Welcome, Khalees. Khalees Mardiasih is an Indonesian creative writer and a columnist for a number of digital outlets. She has written in total 4 books, really impressive, about diversity, religious life and society, as well as gender equality, especially for Muslim women who are facing an increasing environment of conservatism and also, unfortunately, increasing extremism in their everyday life. Khalees, with the Gus Durian National Network, that is an activist network working on issues like multiculturalism, democracy, human rights, you're facilitating digital literacy training sessions, but you're not only active in the digital space. You're also organizing face-to-face meeting classes that train participants in media literacy on the internet, but also equally inform them about gender inequality and what they can do to speak up and make their voices heard. So tell us a bit about yourself and your journey and how you got started with this online campaigning and offline engagement. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Heidi, for the opportunity. Thank you, UNFPA Asia, for organizing this SWOP 2020 report. Okay, I would like to start with the background of my movement. Actually, the past 5 years, Indonesia has faced the phenomena of conservative turns. This phenomena seen from many Muslim people, actually, that suddenly they become more religious than before, that called the Hijrah group. And in the most simple movement, they change their fashion style. And in country level, this group want to make Indonesia adopted the Islamic law. For example, they propose the constitutional court to criminalize non-marital relationship. And this group has massive agenda in digital platform also, very massive platform and very massive follower. I mean, and in women issues, they are promoting child marriage, they promoting domestication for Muslim women, and teaching women to keep silent towards domestic violence because you are women and you should be patient, etc., etc. And the conservative preachers also promote the female genital mutilation in a very dangerous way. Like they said that if doctor refuse to cut the baby genitals, so cut by yourself. It's very dangerous way in they preach in YouTube platform. And actually, I feel so seen because this conservative turn has started in Indonesia actually since 20 years ago after the regime of Suharto fall, and now they are going digital. And I realized that my only skill is writing, so I realized that I'm not able to create graphic or video actually. So Gus Durian Network start to build the team, a very little team, one person to write the copywriting, one person to design the graphic content, and one person to edit the video content. And a personnel in the team did the research together. We may call content anonymous because it makes the content more inclusive and easier to engage with the audiences. Actually, this is the unique experience from us when the audience that contra our narrative actually also share our content because our content the storytelling is so satisfying, so they share our content. And we are connected to many influencers that has the same concern about this exclusivism and extremism based religion agenda actually. So actor, comedian, singer, artist, academician, and also minister who has been very active on digital platform to amplify the messages. They retweet, repost, or re-upload the content with the hashtags. And for my personal account, I make content by myself using a very simple graphic application named PixArt. I post gender equality topics using storytelling techniques every day by hashtags mencatat pengalaman perempuan, or in English is documenting women's life experience. And I also do my training offline in 20 and last year. I have trained in like 15 region in Indonesia, and what I concern actually is just to tell women that this Islamic knowledge is not only owned by men. We are, as women, also have authority to speak on our religion. Like we are, as women, also has rights to interpret the Islamic legal text, and we are also has our rights to speak on our religion interpretation, and our voice are valid as a Muslim women. Heidi.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. I mean, we all agree that we have the same rights and equal rights, and also have the voices and the choices to make our own decision. But sometimes it's about convincing others and giving them the voices to speak for themselves. And I know I cannot give justice to all the milestones that you have achieved in your life that made you become a youth advocate and an activist in your own community. But we really want to have a snapshot of what has made you to become that. And with our final and last panelist, Rachana, she has shared a video with us because she's also in her community facing connectivity issues sometimes, and we wanted to show this video to let you to give the voice, Rachana, to describe your journey and your story yourselves, how you have become a women's rights activist and founder of the Idea Nepal Network, which is a non-profit organization. So without further ado, please let's share the video of Rachana.
Hello, Namaste. I am Rachana Sunar from Nepal. I am a human rights activist and founder of Idea Nepal, working to end child marriage and violence against women and girls in Nepal. The reason behind of my work, it reflects my own story. I was forced to marry off when I was 15 years old. Without my any involvement in decision of my own wedding, I was asked to get ready to be a bride, which was not acceptable for me. I wanted to study and live my life independently, so I was desperate. I had to go against of my own family, and I said no to child marriage. So luckily, I escaped from child marriage and remained at school. Since that day, I took each day as a grand day to raise awareness against of child marriage and its bad consequences. I started having a dialogue with young girls and door-to-door campaign to raise awareness with parents how we can end this harmful practice of child marriage. This is not only my story. Worldwide, 650 million girls and women get married before they turn 18. And in Nepal, there is 37% of child marriage exists, which means 4 out of 10 girls lose their chance for education. They're exposed to rape and domestic violence, physical and mental torture. They get premature pregnancy risks relating to child mortality, miscarriages, uterus collapse, and other health consequences. It can lead them to depression and suicide. In the practice of Nepal, women and young girls are lacking to have their bodily autonomy, their reproductive freedom, safe, hygienic menstruation, and their choices over their own body. During this COVID-19 pandemic, in different quarantine centers, women and girls were group raped and sexually harassed. That reveals the bitter truth that still women are vulnerable to have their rights of bodily autonomy. Therefore, we are fighting against of the child marriage. And in these past 7 years, we have stopped more than 80 child marriages, and we have sent 50 girls back to school, and we have raised awareness around 10,000 young girls and boys in different schools. I imagine of a safe society where no girls are forced to child marriage, raped, child labor, and sexually harassed, where girls are valued and treated with equal respect, love, and dignity. So let's have a dialogue and break the silence. Thank you.
Wow, very impressive. Rachana, I think I cannot see her online. We have had difficulties connecting to Nepal, but we hope we can talk to her later so she can tell herself about her journey and what she has done so far to convince families in her community to stop child marriage. I hand now over to Sara again to tell us a bit about what's your journey? How does your engagement look like? How do you engage with your community? And how do you, first of all, engage with men and young boys, because they are often forgotten in the advocacy around women's rights and gender equality? Over to you, Sara.
Thank you, Heidi. So basically, through our platform Nufoshe, which translates into Don't Harass, we created a space where women can share their stories and make a stand against harassment. And over the last 6 years, we have prioritized different target audiences and organized our work so that we can most effectively reach these groups. In the beginning, we received a lot of stories from women who were recounting their experiences as young girls. And for a lot of them, it was the first time that they were talking about their experience of harassment. And because in the Maldives, there's a lack of honest conversations around gender, sexuality, and consent, and a lack of reproductive and health education in the school curriculum, a lot of young women feel like what they had to go through was their fault. And so in the beginning of Nufoshe, a lot of the work we did was around building these networks and creating solidarity among women. And over the years, like you just mentioned, we shifted our focus to also engage with young men, because too often issues that revolve around women's safety and violence against women only include women. And we wanted to create content that also reached out to men to explain how they can be better allies and better bystanders, because a lot of the time they also lack the information to effectively engage in these situations. So we were able to reach groups that we were otherwise, not a part of, and work with more people. Currently, we are also focused on building partnerships with other NGOs and activist groups to demand structural change. Right now, we are part of an ongoing campaign in the Maldives called Fund Our Safety, which demands the state to allocate enough funds to ensure the safety of women and children from abuse, violence, and harmful practices.
Thanks, Sara, for giving an insight in your work and how to break the silence and how to break the regard that sexual harassment and abuse is seen as normalized. It's really important to speak up and to engage with everyone to change the narrative in the communities. Welcome back, Rachana. Great to see you, and great that you have the chance to connect. I know it's been difficult with the internet connection in Nepal, but thanks to our digital technology, you were able to come back. I would like to take the audience on a journey with you. You have mentioned in your video that you engage mainly door to door with communities, with families, and also with young girls that maybe not even know about their rights, and that they can actually speak up to end those harmful practices. So it's a very difficult conversation. You're starting with families, with everyone in your community, and you have turned your personal journey as an almost victim of child marriage into your cause, into your profession, to become an advocate for those young girls and women to speak up and disrupting the root causes of the inequality in the community. So the question to you is, how do you convince people to change their minds and behaviors about harmful practices in your community? You're muted. Rachana, you're muted. Perfect.
Thank you very much for having me here. Although it's been very trouble getting me here, and I ask for the apologies for the bad internet connection. And thank you for having me here. It's such a privilege to share my stories and to meet the young activists, young youth like Sara and colleagues, that we need more youth like us to make a difference in the world we want. As you mentioned, my story, my personal journey, the motive behind of my campaign, why I am so into raising awareness against of the child marriage, it comes first with my own experience. The time I was asked to get ready to become a bride, even without any involvement of my decision, when I was asked to get ready to be a bride next day with a strange man, which was not acceptable. I felt the burden in my heart, like how hard it was to go against of my own family when we are raised in the culture saying no to our parents, just to show our loyalty to them. It was quite hard for me to convince them, but I did say no to child marriage because I wanted to study and live my life independently. That's how I started saying no. Then I realized the power of speaking up, the power of saying no, which can actually make a difference in our own life. Then I thought, why don't I give this power to other friends, to the sister next door that I see they are still going through the same circumstance as I had. Since 2013, I have started having dialogue with them, because having dialogue is the way of breaking the silence. When we talk to people, we break the silence and we finalize the solution, and we share our opinions and thoughts where we can find the solution of the problems. I convince people, firstly saying no to the child marriage and convincing them to speak up, because young girls, they have also power to say no, that they can convince their parents and they can convince their families that they want to remain at school, because remaining at school is the main important work that they can have a bright future and great life ahead. So I go door to door, talk to parents and convince them that if they let their girls to remain at school, they may have a better life than them. They may not go through the same cycle like domestic violence, sexual rape and harassment, and life under extreme poverty. So they may be independent and have their opportunities to live the life they dreamed of. So another important work, we provide small educational support and scholarship to the girls, just to support them and motivate them to go to school regular, because we know education is the key for the change. If they stay at school, they can have a better life, they can have a job and be independent, and at the same time they help their younger sisters from being forced bride. So since 7 years of the activism, we have stopped 80 child marriages and we have sent 50 girls back to school. And we are being raising awareness in our community by organizing different campaigns like street drama, where we play drama, we convince people, we send our messages to them by using our art and voices, so they can also understand why this is so important to break these harmful practices and to break the culture of acceptance, because it's being quite hard to break it since the community and society is accepting child marriage so easily. So we have to go door to door, raise awareness against our parents, and they can take their action to save their girls. That's how we convince people. Thank you.
Thank you. As you mentioned in the video, it's about having a dialogue. It's about having that sit down and discuss and really talk about the rights of your child, the rights of the community, the rights of the family, and make the best decision for our girls. Let's now turn to a video that also summarizes the struggle of against child marriage and how difficult it is to change norms and narratives around that topic. Over.
Yes, although in Nepal child marriage is illegal, like getting married before the age of 20, it says it's child marriage, and we all know that child marriage is the violation of human rights. It abandons girls to have any access of their basic human rights. Mm-hmm. It is being hard for us to convince parents, especially in the community where I live. 90% of the people, they are depend on their daily wages. 90% of the people are almost illiterate. So they don't see the benefit of girls sending to school because the poverty comes as a main root of cause. In my experience, I have seen girls taking their own decision to get married because they think that they are being burdened for their families if they run away from the family by getting married. So their family may have much resources left to feed their small brothers and sisters. It seems very difficult to change their mindset when there are many other issues comes as a root of cause and barriers. So illiteracy, poverty, domestic violence, and the guardians not having good parenting skills comes as a main root of cause that promote child marriage every day. In Nepal, there is 37% of child marriage exist, which means 4 girls out of 10 will lose their chance for education. They will be dropped out from the school right away after getting married. They will experience the domestic violence, physical harassment, mental and sexual torture. They may go through the high risk of premature pregnancy, including child mortality, miscarriage, malnutrition, uterus collapse, and other relating serious health consequences. So girls are being abandoned of having good life, and it's not only about their life. The young child are raising child with them. So child marriage hamper the 3 generation. First, when they get married, they are totally depending on their mother-in-laws and father-in-laws because they are not economically empowered. They are not having job and they are being dropped out from the school. So they are depending on their guardians. And when they have babies in such a young age, like 16 years old, 18 years old, then they cannot give the good facilities and good education opportunities to their children. So the 3 generations are struggling with the same problem with the child marriage issues. So one of the work we are doing is we are having a small kindergarten. We provide educational opportunity to young children. So we take them in, we raise them in a peaceful, loving environment where they can learn about human rights and about gender equality, and there is no difference between girls and boys. And at the same time, we encourage young mothers who are too young to go to school and they have still potential to learn the skills and to live their life independently. So we motivate them to go back to school. That's how we are helping both young children and young mothers to have a better life. And of course, we take help from police and our local government to help in our campaign to raise awareness against of child marriage and to convince people if they don't listen to us properly, then we get help from the police. So we make sure that there is finally girls are safe and there is no forcefully child bride. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachana, for giving us an insight in your work to really tell us about the struggle you're facing. And it really takes an intergenerational approach to tackle those issues, but that human rights education can't really start at a young age. It really has to start in kindergarten already. So we know that children, young women, the girls that they become, etc., can speak up for themselves. I want to illustrate the story that you just told with a video. So let's play the video on child marriage that we can share. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks a lot to our colleagues from Plan International for bringing in this video, because it takes all of us to change those perceptions. It's NGOs, it's governments, it's advocates that work in the communities to tackle those issues. Now let's over to Khalees and your engagement. Your work touches on child marriage as well, but also on the broader women's empowerment in the Islamic world. So how do you engage with your community, and what has changed during COVID?
Okay, Heidi. We all know that this time currently is very hard time for all of us. And we know that every day the number of domestic violence is rising all over the world. We know also in the crisis, the time of crisis, also the number of child marriage always rising. And the bad news is we can talk about that because like television, mass media, digital media, all of them is only talk about COVID, and the women issues is not become the priority in media right now because the problem of COVID. So, and I also that when I realized this is the time of crisis, and I need several weeks for actually to realize that yes, this is the time of crisis. Wake up, please do something. Like and then I become to speak on my Twitter to encourage and to like to start to bring the conversation that where is woman in the time of COVID? Where is the informal worker, the women in informal worker in the time of COVID? Where is the girls? Where is the Muslim women in the time of COVID? Like I bring that issue become mainstream and on my Twitter account, on my Instagram account, and every time I read the news about domestic violence, I every time I read the news about the child marriage, I always and I rise on my personal account to talk about that for the youth. And but yeah, in the time of COVID, after this 4 months of pandemic, I find that I'm even more busy than before because I'm very productive actually. I organize Instagram live series to talk women issues once a week. I invite women activists, actress and entrepreneur and many more to collaborate. I speak for many webinar series. I'm also lead digital campaign for COVID-19 donation on Kita Bisa platform. I got actually 12 million in only 3 days campaign by my personal account on the donation platform. And also I organize my workshop by online, and it has been more interesting because the participants are from all over Indonesia. That before crisis, I never do it because I just move from one city to another city, and the forum was very satisfying. And this online tradition actually make access to knowledge become more inclusive. And right that I realized that, so I become like, yeah, yes, we can engage to the movement again.
Thank you so much. That was quite impressive, the work you've done, also raising money through the online channels, and really monetizing your influence as you're influencing social media for a good cause.
Yeah. Actually, last week, I also become the first top influencer in Twitter in Indonesia to speak up on. We know that in Indonesia we are on the movement to legalize the anti-sexual harassment constitution, and we know that the one kinds of the sexual. The sexual harassment is the forced marriage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, we are on the movement.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, and congratulations. It's a real big achievement. So you can also reach so many other young women in Indonesia to speak up and raise their voices. Over to you, Sara. Your engagement on street harassment also came to a halt during COVID time because of the limited the restrictions that a lot of people had to face. So how did you engage during COVID times with your community, and has your activism also changed?
Because we were pretty organized online prior to the pandemic, we were always able to keep the conversation going online. And like Khalees just mentioned, there has been rising reports of domestic violence, child abuse, cases of child marriage in the Maldives that has been making the media just almost every day. And so on online platforms like Twitter, people were already engaging with these issues. So for the campaign that we're now part of, Fund Our Safety, it just became so much easier to come out with demands so that people could mobilize around these demands to demand the structural change that we need so that these things stop happening. And I think what we really need in the Maldives is really changing the norms in the policy making level. Like historically in the Maldives, there have been some laws that are very well designed to protect women and children, but they have always been set up for failure. They have lacked funding, they have lacked the political will to actually ensure that these laws are effectively implemented. And so right now, by focusing on these structural demands, we are able to mobilize more people to talk about these issues and to have something that they can demand the state do to change these things, instead of just saying, violence against women is wrong. We are saying fund more trained professionals working in social services, make sure that there are safe shelters accessible for all women across the country, and also to change the current education curriculum that does not effectively equip girls and young women with the knowledge they need to have about their bodies, about relationships, about sexuality. And these are the things that need to happen right now. And so by creating a set of demands and putting them online, we were able to work with lots of people to mobilize this, to call out their MPs, to make them take this issue up. And I think having a pretty vibrant online space in the Maldives has been really helpful in making sure that we can effectively start advocating for change even during the pandemic.
Thanks a lot. Also for pointing out and highlighting the accountability that you're asking for, and that it really requires a policy change as well, in addition to the advocacy and advocates that are speaking up. I want to now move over to a video that really points out that story, speaking up, speaking out, demanding change, and also as one of the topics that the State of the World Population Report, the SWOP 2020, pointed out is female genital mutilation for young women. And the next video we want to share is about that topic, but it's about so much more, because with all harmful practice, we see that there is underlying gender inequality, injustice against women. And now I want to show the last video to then move over to a discussion on the world we really want and the changes we really want to see. Over.
Voices of a lost generation are introducing the new women who choose how they move.
We're here because we want to educate. We're here because we want a better future.
It starts with one voice. Nothing exciting happens in silence.
FGM is a harmful practice. We are aiming to raise awareness of FGM and to help those who may be at risk.
This harmful practice affects approximately 140 million girls and women worldwide, and we're not ready to stop talking about it.
People say it's culture, but culture isn't always right.
This practice does not make anyone beautiful.
I want to tell the world how harmful and painful FGM is. Many people could die from it.
Don't need to see her face to know she's been affected.
The bottom line is that it hurts, physically and mentally.
Right can affect any girl. They can fling all they want at me. I did not consent.
Any person, any place, not just a black people thing.
Persevering, they keep strong and will not be defeated. They do not consent, they have found themselves.
I believe everyone, young, old, male and female, need to unite to fight against this harmful cultural practice.
We are the allies against FGM. As a group of women, united we stand. But it's not just women power, it is equal power across generations.
We are here to show people that they are not alone and that we are all in this together.
Let's not let this be the end of the world. Women kept silent, speak up.
We need to give people a voice to prevent it from happening again.
The more of us that stand up, the less of us this will affect.
Don't suffer in silence, no secret worth keeping.
We encourage everyone to spark the conversation and use their voices over silence.
We are campaigning for female genital mutilation, FGM, to be added as a compulsory subject to the national curriculum, as well as for small communities to talk about harmful traditional practices within family groups.
It only takes one voice to change the opinion of a nation.
Your choice, you are the boss. You have found your voice.
Thanks a lot. And I think this is giving us a great path into the last part of our session today on what world do you want and where do you see changes? And we have received some questions from the audience, and I'm going to read it out. This question goes to every one of you. You can just unmute yourself, but I'm going to start with Rachana. What are the key barriers and challenges you've faced in your existing journey, and what support you need from governments, UN agencies, CSO, private sector, and community institutions to make a way forward? Rachana, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Yes, we see
Thank you very much for having these questions. In our journey, the main root of cause and barriers comes as poverty, illiteracy, and domestic violence. The culture we have, that it accepts the cultures, and it's been very hard to break the cultures, because we want to encourage girls to have zero tolerance, but at the same time they are being raised from their parents to say no or to say yes to the decision of their parents. And the support we need from our government, that is still in Nepal, it says that child marriage is illegal to have, but we are lacking to have sufficient implementation of those written frameworks and laws, because the laws are really far away to see the fact in the community that child marriage keeps happening and girls are keep being victim of domestic violence, and they're suffering to have a better life when in a young age they have to go to school, but they are going to jungle and they are suffering their life, many burdens out there. So it's been hard for us to fill that gap with the reality and with our law. And we act as a watchdog in our community, that we watch our girls and we see the problems and we finalize, and we want to address these issues, and we want to raise awareness among the people, saying no to child marriage, and also convincing their parents to be with their girls and let them to remain at school. But it's hard to convince parents when they are not able to send their girls to the high school, paying the expensive fees and all the providing educational materials. Of course, it's hard for them. They do understand the things we teach them, but at the same time, we don't have much resources to provide them right away. Like, okay, send your girls to the school and we are going to pay for her fees and for all the materials she needs. In some cases, we also have to take our feet backward when we see that we can't handle financially, and all the providing resources is a hard choice for us. But the government is helping us when we hear the news that some girls are being forcibly child bride. Then we reach the house of the girls and we talk to their parents, we convince them, we try to stop the wedding right there. If they don't listen to us, then we call to the police, and police comes, and it becomes all the legal process to help the girls legally to save her from the child bride. That's the help we are getting from the government.
Thank you.
But during
So it's about implementation as well, the issue, and the lack of funding that you pointed out, that there is really a need. Let's move over to Kelly's, and also a question we received from the audience is, how do you engage with rural communities that might have connectivity issues? And is there a way also to connect to groups of people?
Okay, thank you. Actually, I think to connect with the other community is not difficult as we imagine that, because it is easy actually. If we speak on the good value and the humanity value, actually that is the idea or the word that the community want also. So just not by us, that the human rights defenders, but actually this is all people in the world issues. So yeah, we just talk to them. We connect in social media. We promoting the same value, and then we organize the offline meeting, and then we organize the community, and then we just collaborate, we just make solidarity. So that is not difficult as we imagine that. So just start the connection.
Thank you. So it's about talking the same language, really addressing the issues in a way that everyone can understand it and that everyone feels included and also related to the issue. And I have the honor to now finish the panel with Sara. She started and now we finished it. And my question to you is, what world do you want to see? What is the change do you want to achieve with your engagement? And what do you wish for the world after the global pandemic? Over to you, Sara. You're muted, Sara.
Sorry. I was just saying, here in the Maldives, as in many parts of the world, we've all been talking about, focusing on this new normal and what this new normal is going to look like as we move forward after the pandemic. And I think what is required is to invest in the health and education of young women and girls, and to end all of these religious and cultural practices that women and girls are subject to, so that women and girls can also reach their full potential and be an equal part of the society in every aspect of their lives. And I think what is lacking here in the Maldives in some levels is that women, and especially young women, are left out of these conversations where, their future is being decided or things that concern them are being decided. For example, right now there is a education reform bill currently opened up for comments here in the Maldives, and it is also only accessible for a very small part of the community living here in the living here in the capital city, while a lot of young women living outside the capital city in more rural areas are left behind. And I think the government needs to make more of an effort to ensure inclusivity of all these voices, to ensure that the laws that they make represent the people the laws are meant for. And I was lucky enough to be a part of the ICPD conference held in Nairobi last year, and there were all of these young activists who were talking about, having these difficult conversations and doing and changing the system and demanding nothing less than the full realization of all of their human rights. And I think that change is possible, and that is what we need to be demanding as well, and that is what we need to be working towards as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sara, for telling us also about how impressive the ICPD 25 conference was in Nairobi and what it changed in your thinking. With that, I want to end and thank the panelists for their great contribution. Today's discussion really showed that it's important to listen to young people's views on harmful practices and to learn more about the different groups and the different contexts and the activism, how to reach the peers. Youth leadership and participation is one of the main pillars of UNFPA's work, but also of the UN with the 2030 Youth Strategy and UNFPA's strategy, My Body, My Life, My World. And our goal is to end harmful practices by the end of the decade, but we need young people because, as you showed today and told us and everyone in the audience online, is you know more about your rights than any other generation before, and it's really the young people that are needed to speak up to speak up against harmful practices and for gender equality. And now with COVID, this youth engagement is more important than ever. So thank you very much. With that, I'll hand over to our regional director, Björn Andersen, for his final remarks.
Thank you so much. And to all of you three panelists, it's really been so useful to listen to your experiences and your stories. I really would like to thank you to share that, because I know that we all, questions around sexuality, reproductive health, often are very personal and often are very difficult to discuss. But I think we need to break that, and we need to continue and listening to highlight that for the improvement of everybody in this region in particular. And listening to all three of you, I have no doubt that you will continue to do that and to support the work, not just what UNFPA does, but the support of the work which is being done in this region in terms from civil society partners and governments, and never ever take for granted that your human rights are secured. You always have to make sure that you are promoting them, and that you are also making sure that everybody understands that to be able to enjoy your human rights, it's a way to also improve the societies we are living in, and also to achieve the societies and communities we all aspire, and which was really the fundamental outcome of ICPD 1994, together with other conferences in the 1990s. It was a way to agree for governments globally that these are the societies, these are the kinds of societies we would like to see in our countries. So with all of that, really, thank you. And I also thank you on behalf of all colleagues within UNFPA, to working with us and to make sure that we are on the right track. Thank you. And over to you, Roy.
Thank you so much, Bjorn. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, panelists. We could have actually spoken, I think, for the next 2 or 3 hours and still not covered all the issues. And there were so many more questions we wanted to ask the panelists, but it was a full hour. It was quite rich. And this is not the end. We will be back with you over the years to come, and we will be following your work very closely with huge interest, because as you grow older, you will be mentoring younger people as well. So you will be handing over the legacy of your own shared experiences to the others who will be following in the years ahead. And even though it's a very tough time for the world, there is conservatism, there is COVID, when we hear people like you, we are ourselves truly inspired, because it is very easy sometimes to get cynical about how things are. But we can't give up. We have to persevere step by step, some steps back, some steps forward. So with that, I want to thank all of you. And this actually brings to an end the 3rd and final episode of our State of World Population Report launch events. And I just wanted to say to the audience that if you haven't seen the report, you can go on the internet and you can go to the actual hyperlink is unfpa.org/against my will. Once again, unfpa.org/against my will. And with that, thank you all so much. And to the audience, stay safe, stay well, and keep in touch. Goodbye from us all.